Tunstall is Regulators. We regulate any stealing of his property. We're damn good, too. You can't be any geek off the street. Gotta be handy with the steel, if you know what I mean. Earn your keep. Regulators! Mount up.
Good evening, family. Good evening, and welcome to another edition of the Political Regulators. It's your man, your host, Hassan Giordano, aka Mr. Politic, back in the building this evening. It's election day all across the country. Thank God we're getting through this one so we can get to next year's election right here in Maryland. Of course, I'm always joined by my fabulous and famous co-host, the former mayor of Baltimore City, Mayor Sheila Dixon. Good evening, Madam Mayor.
Good evening.
How you doing?
Long day today. I'm good. I'm a little dragging this evening. Long day.
Really? It was a great day.
Yeah.
I was off.
I got busy.
I got to go get my admissions done, get all my doctor's appointments, and I'm refreshed.
That's
I took
good.
a nap.
Oh, wow. I know you are. That's good. You know, November is Men's Month as it relates to health. And they did a survey. 72% of men would rather do things around the house than to go to the doctors. So good. I'm glad you said you went to the doctors, got your checkup and all that. Because when I saw those statistics, I was like, wow, that's bad. So this month the emphasis is on men and their health and wellness.
Well, I'd rather do anything but go to the doctors and the dentist. I'd rather go. Actually, the doctors to me isn't that bad. It's the dentist that I really just hate. I don't even want to. I dread it.
Well, I don't think nobody likes a dentist.
No. But my doctor is, Robin is great. Like Dr. Hardick, I've been going to him since I was a kid. So, that's not too bad. Until I get to that age that they got to start, turn around, bend over type stuff, then we're going to have a problem.
So now how old are you?
I'm 45. I've had it already. I've had it.
Okay.
I've had it. Yeah.
That's all you said.
There's a terminology. It's not just men that have that done when you get your colon checked and everything. It's not, well, it should, women as well.
Okay, but see, things penetrating that part of their body. Let's put it that way.
Oh, you think women do too?
I don't know. I'm just saying that. That's
no.
Hello.
The one with the promotions that we would be doing, I can't think of the name of the church, but it would always be trying to get guys, black men to get tested. And no lie, every single guy that would come up when they was, we were giving free testing and excuses was, I'm not getting that stuck in it. I'm like, really? This is your health. So you would prefer, how they always say if you're eating the right stuff now as opposed to eating, taking medication for stuff that you ate when you were younger. It's like, so you would prefer waiting until somebody says, oh, well, you may have cancer, prostate cancer, and you'll sit there and go, well, I should have had it done.
Right. But also colon cancer. And now they're finding younger and younger people, and particularly African-American males at a younger age in their early 40s are getting it. So your colon now, so they're changing even the colonoscopies. Used to be after you're 55 or whatever, unless you have a history in your family. So now they're recommending it at earlier age. So,
and I think a lot of families a lot of guys should get tested, period. And no matter how old you are or how young you are. And the reason why I say that is because think about it. How many of us African-American men, women know our family history beyond our mothers and fathers? How about our grandmothers and grandfathers and great grandmothers? And we don't know. You don't know if you're current, Gene. I mean, it's so many things that we could have and we don't know about because they never kept records of our background, our medical history in the family.
Right. And you have to have that discussion. Actually, I know a history on both sides of my family, and I gave a list to my kids so that when they went to go to the doctor, they can share that history like 3 and 4 generations.
Right.
Yep. You got to do that.
I'm celebrating commemorating the 1 year anniversary of my mother's passing. And my mother passed from breast cancer, and she waited too late. She knew that she felt something. She had a lump almost 4 years ago, and she just didn't move on it. So my advice to folks is if you're not sure, go get checked. It's better to be unsure and get a doctor to examine you and tell you that there's nothing there, than to prolong. And my mom's prolonged too long until it became very aggressive.
And a lot of men feel ashamed. And I think in general, people feel, a lot of African Americans are ashamed when if you're paying a doctor to, at least take care of you, at least on the health side, why are you ashamed?
Right.
I never get it. I never get that.
Well, there's a whole host of issues, just like women and getting mammograms.
Mm-hmm.
October was breast cancer month. There are women, it is painful. It is painful. And I thought it was more painful for women who had smaller breasts than larger breasts, but the technician said it doesn't matter. It's painful, but it doesn't last. And look at Jay's parents as a result of that. It could have been avoided if she was going for regular yearly checkups.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Sad. That's how we are.
Yeah, we got to do a whole session on health and fitness, because that's I live by that, well. And I know it meant that's all a part of it. All of it: mental, physical, spiritual health.
Definitely.
Well, speaking of spiritual, because y'all took this whole program to a whole healthy. What was your slogan, Madam Mayor? Cleaner, greener, healthier,
safer. Yep. And it wasn't a slogan. It was trying to change the mindset, but also try to take a holistic approach along with not only the citizens, but how we operated as a city. To look in the eyes of the impact that it has, because medical wise and the benefits, we were spending a lot of money, and we still do. We have a lot of unhealthy city employees, and one of the things that I wanted to try to change was those numbers. From smoking to the various cancers, and just look at the great institutions we have, and we really hammered in on those institutions to be partners with us, but to really get out there and get the community to see the connection and what we did. So it was beyond a slogan. It was a philosophy to operate by.
And look with Biden out right now at the climate summit. I mean, the conversation is a cleaner, greener, environment. You were on the forefront and on the cusp of bringing that to Baltimore many decades ago. So,
yep, electric cars, recycling, the whole host.
And you notice Tim Adams kind of stole your little thing during the program he had with us last week. He I don't think you caught it. He inserted the cleaner, greener, healthier. I don't think he said safer though. And I think somebody probably on the staff probably put that in his ear. So he kind of inserted that note. He was going to be on there. But speaking of health, before we get started, as always, every week I got to shout out to my Baltimore Ravens. We're getting a lot healthier. Nick Boyle, tight end, is supposed to be returning this week. Sammy Watkins should be returning.
As long as we dodge bullets.
Yeah. Latavius Murray is supposed to be returning, as well as cornerback Chris Westry, who should be returning as well, if not this week, next week. So we're getting healthier. Even during our bye week, Madam Mayor, we went from tied for first place to being outright in first place since the Cincinnati Bengals got their butt whipped by the 1-6 New York Jets this past
I
Sunday.
saw some of that game. Yeah.
So they talked all that stuff about the Bengals and how great they were, and then they turn around and get their butt whipped by the Jets.
Yeah.
But on any given Sunday, so this week family, of course, Sunday, 1 o'clock. We'll watch them down at the bank. We'll be going against the Minnesota Vikings, looking to put together at least a 3 to 4 win streak, because we got a couple scrubs, or low end, I ain't gonna call them scrubs, low end teams that we can hopefully run through before we come back to Baltimore the Sunday after Thanksgiving, Sunday night football against our hated division rival Cleveland Browns. So Ravens look like we're going to be on the upbeat. But tonight, of course, we're joined, as always, by some remarkable guests. 2 gentlemen. One's a state delegate from Baltimore County. Sorry. The other is a political operative in his own right down in Prince George's County. Next week, family, will be joined by 40th District State Senator Antonio Hayes. He'll be joining the program to discuss some very important work and dates that you need to know about, as well as being joined by some powerful local power brokers down in Prince George's County as well, and a candidate who's vying to become the next state delegate down in Prince George's County. Richard Deshae Elliott will join our candidate spotlight. Now, remember, if you are a candidate for office next year and you want to be highlighted on a future show, reach out to us by emailing us at info@dmvdaily.news or leave us a message right on our Facebook page at DMV Daily News, and we'll make sure to get you on. Now, tonight, if you want to join the conversation, remember you can chime in on our Facebook or YouTube pages by simply leaving us a message right there. And JJ, our producer, will be looking out and taking your questions online. Our show engineer, Jason Rodriguez, is manning the phones. So if you have a burning desire, you want to call in with a question or comment for our guest or for our host, do so by calling 1-844-404-7200 is the number. Now, tonight, Madam Man, we're joined by a young man that you and I both know, and we've seen his work and perseverance pay off. As that old adage says, hard work and patience do pay off in the long run. He worked for your campaign a few years ago. He unsuccessfully ran for a House of Delegates, but then turned right around and got appointed and became the first African-American to ever be serving in that 8th Legislative District of Baltimore County. Tonight, we're joined by Delegate Carl Jackson. Welcome to the Political Regulators.
Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
Glad to see you.
Y'all might not see him, but he's always texting every show he's watching. He's a loyal follower of the show from the beginning. He'd be texting me during the show like, hey.
You're not supposed to tell people, man.
No, that's a good thing. You know, I mean, I appreciate that. I don't want, you're right, because I don't want other people doing the same thing. It's only
on Baltimore County stuff.
Yeah. That's it. Nah, I got some texts that you didn't chime in on some other stuff that, you know. But speaking of Baltimore County stuff, you're doing some great work over there in the 8th Legislative District. You got a rec center over there that you're responsible for. There's a lot of things happening. What was your drive in putting together that rec center and just coming in, you know, kind of hitting the ground running to be able to get this stuff done?
So part of, I live in the lower district, in the lower half of the District 8, and which is majority minority. And I was just tired of being sick and tired of not getting any investment from state or the county and, in that part of the district, which is where I live. And so I was really inspired by the former president, Barack Obama. And I'm paraphrasing here. He's pretty much saying, if you're tired of the way your politics is going, then run for office yourself. Be the change that you want to see. And so I grew up in a place called Hollander Ridge. I'm sure you're familiar with that, Madam Mayor. And we had a rec center, and that rec center was my lifeline. That's where I went to Head Start. I vaguely remember lining up against the wall, learning how to brush my teeth. And at the rec center, it's where we went for free lunch during the summer months, and breakfast. Couldn't wait for that Cloverland truck to pull up with them brown lunch boxes. That's what we looked forward to. That's how we ate, during the summer months. I learned how to develop photos in a dark room at the rec center. It was a place that kept me out of trouble, kept me out of the streets. And so, in my district, the portion that I'm talking about, I just wanted to replicate the same thing. I wanted a place where kids can go that was a safe space. I'm a big supporter of the PAL program. So that program is going to be in the rec center as well. But not only the kids, we have a substantial senior population. I wanted a place for the seniors to be able to go in their community. They won't have to get in their cars and drive. They can just walk. And everyone in between. So, my driving force was, just trying to make a difference for my community. The kids, they're just walking around, playing in the street, hitting folks' cars with the footballs and the volleyballs and all that kind of stuff, or in the house playing video games. So I wanted to have something in this community for kids and seniors to be able to utilize, and that they can call their own. Not only that, I wanted to leave a legacy, because this community center will serve this area for generations to come. And I was just very passionate about it. I did, when I came up with the idea, I didn't just, say, this is what I'm going to do, and, not have any community input. No, I had a community meeting with about 4 communities. Over 25 constituents came out. It was packed. This was during the 2018 election. I invited a candidate, Johnny Olszewski, at that time. And, we had a community meeting about it. And I wanted to hear from community members and let their voices be heard. And it was overwhelming support for this project. And the county executive said, candidate Olszewski said, if I become county executive, I'm going to make this a priority for my administration. And so he kept his word. And I thank him for that. But, just trying to create opportunity, for young kids, to be able to have a space where they can go and it's a safe space and have access to athletics and things like that. So that was what worked for me. And I'm just trying to replicate that here in District 8.
That's great. So were you were part of the Good Now Rec Center?
I was a part. Well, after I moved from Hollander Ridge, I moved to the Good Now area. I was a part of Good Now. I believe that was the first. Was that the first in the city, Madam Mayor?
The PAL Center?
Mm-hmm.
I believe it was. I know my nephews also. That was a safe haven for them, Phil and Juan.
Yeah. And that was also like a godsend. That was a place I went to after school. I got help with my homework. I think they partnered with Civic Works or something like that. Mm-hmm. At the time. We had access to athletics. We was there until about 8 p.m. till our parents either picked us up or, we walked home in the community. But the beauty of that PAL program was that it helped foster a good relationship between the police and the community. And it got to the point where the police officers at that PAL Center gained the trust of everybody in that community. They knew every child that went there, their parents, extended family, and it just fostered a great relationship. And to this day, I still keep in touch with one of those officers. He's actually John Harbaugh's security on the Baltimore Ravens, and so we still keep in touch. And,
that's one of Phil's friends.
Yeah.
So who's going to pay the budget for the PAL Center?
So the county put up half of the money, and then we secured money from Open Space, Project Open Space, from the state.
But is that for the construction of it or the actual programming?
That's for the construction of it. It's going to be run under the Department of Rec and Parks. They're going to manage it. But it's also going to have the PAL program in there as well, which is something I was pushing hard for. I wanted to, in this community, try to foster that same experience trying to build a relationship between the police and, communities, especially communities of color.
So last week was one of those times that you chimed in on the background. We were talking about redistricting in Baltimore County, and you made some really good points. Because of course we had Kalen Young, attorney, used to be with ACLU, now back with the Scott administration. But the ACLU and others are pushing this redistricting map that, for all intents and purposes, I think, their intentions are good. But what it may mean for the current council district, that is the only one with a Black representative at the moment. They're trying to get at least 2 majority-based districts that we can possibly have 2 minorities, especially in a county that is a majority minority at this point. What do you feel about this? Because this is your county that's being pushed in. Do you think this is going to be a benefit, or will it be detrimental possibly to the county as a whole? Well,
I talked to a few folks about this. It really recently came on my radar. I didn't know this was going on, but when it was brought to my attention, I made a few calls and found out that the Black population is increasing in Baltimore County. The unfortunate part is that those populations are dispersed. That and the only area that has a high concentration of African Americans is District 4, and which is Councilman Julian Jones' district. And from my understanding, I believe they wanted to make 2 districts, kind of separating the current district as it is. And just for me talking to folks, there's a high belief that will dilute the Black vote. Not only that, splitting up his district means you're going into someone else's district. So, I mean, they got to be, okay with that as well.
That's the problem that people have when you talk about redistricting. It's not about saving anybody. It's about making sure that there's a balance and the equity is there. And somebody's going to lose in that process and somebody's going to gain. So if Julian Jones's district goes from, what percentage does he have right now? 60% or 80%?
I'm not sure.
I think it's about 71% African American.
71% to 60%. If he's been doing his job and doing it well, he would probably get elected.
Right. But see,
this is a risk, but everybody wants to save themselves.
Yeah, I think what the purpose of it is trying to get another African American on the council. And so
I understand that.
Yeah, so it's like, it is a risk. It's a big risk because it might not work out that way. But then you have taken votes, from, one council person, who's probably, is going to win re-election easily. But after him, because he may have higher aspirations, then what? When the unknown, runs. So, so I mean, it's a lot of moving parts with that, and I'm looking forward to seeing how it plays out. I see the councilman is willing to try to come up with a different plan, but we'll see how it plays out.
In your legislative district, what's the population breakdown?
So we are about 52% white. African American 30.4%, and the Asian population is about 8.5. So the African American population has really grown in this district. I think we're getting a lot of new residents from Baltimore City, for sure.
You are.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, so it's diversifying for sure. So that's always a good thing.
Well, This is always a good thing. But so I want to talk about you sit on a very powerful committee. And you know what, before we get into that, I want to ask you, because we're bringing this up, and let's be real about this. You're the only African American ever to represent this district, this part of the 8th district.
I'm the only on this side of Baltimore County. Right.
And so a historically white good old boys club that you're now a part of, tell the viewers, how does it affect you, your psyche, your daily life, having to endure this, like having to deal with people that you know are calling you a nigga behind your back, but they're your colleagues now, and you got to be able to serve them.
I'm not sure about the N-word part, but but you know, I talk to everybody. One thing about District 8 is there's been there's many silos in this district, and one of the things that I told myself I would do is get in those silos and try to break them up, try to, you know, introduce, you know, certain areas to other areas. And, you know, I've been doing just that. It's a very, you know, diversified district. I mean, we have constituents from Trump voters to Bernie Sanders, you know, but I talk to everyone. And as far as being, you know, African-American representing this district, I mean, I love it because I have a chance to teach a lot of constituents about about being an African-American and African-American culture. You know, when the George Floyd situation happened, I put out a statement about what it's like to be Black in America, what it's like to be Black and come in contact with police, you know. And I had a lot of white constituents, you know, call me or respond to me apologizing for their privilege and telling me that they will make sure that their kids know, you know, that there's a difference, that their kids have privilege. You know, when police reform came up, I supported that, you know, and, you know, me and my district mate, Harry Bhandari, we supported that bill. Our senator, you know, she didn't. And, you know, I remember being on the Zoom call and.
You said she didn't?
No.
She didn't support police reform?
No.
What's your senator's name?
Kathy Klossmeyer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So, you know, when we had a Zoom meeting with the Chesapeake Gateway, I think Commerce or something like that. And there was a lot of Republicans on that. And all of them said, you know, I voted against police reform. Police are retiring because of it. And da 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 da. And I was the only one who had to say, you know, I supported it. And here's why. You know, no community is affected more by bad policing than the African American community. You know, and you know, I had to stand my ground, and to my surprise, you know, nobody could argue against that. I mean, it's just a fact, you know. And so I said, you know, this bill is to protect folks from bad policing. This bill doesn't hurt good police. It doesn't at all, you know. And so, I just gotta stand, you know, for what I believe in. You know, represent well and represent, you know, the African American community well to other communities. And that's what I've been doing. And I haven't had any issues with racism or anything like that. I recently spoke to Baltimore County Game and Fish Club, which is a Second Amendment club. You know, I'm sure I was the first African American state delegate to ever address them, but I talked about the Second Amendment, and I talked about, you know, how I evolved on the issue, but I explained how where I live, guns were looked at, you know, as weapons, not firearms. They were weapons used to kill people and stick up people and all of those kinds of things. And so I never knew there was a different side to the whole gun thing. I didn't know there was a side where folks collect guns, where guns are passed down from generation to generation, where guns are used for sport. And so being able to tell my truth to, I had a lot of, of those members come up to me and say, I never thought about it that way, and they respected that. And so I understand their position, why they feel so strongly about guns. So, I think I've done well as an African American representing my entire district, and just being able to explain to different populations, different cultures, other cultures, and it's worked out well. From what I hear, a lot of conservatives actually like me. So
they never heard nothing like that.
Hey, but it's always good to tell your truths and to share a perspective, because just like you shared with that group, some of them hadn't thought about it in that way. And besides, you need a balance. Where you are at the state legislature, you need to be able to go to conservatism, whomever, to get those votes to get done what you need to get done.
Yeah.
That was one of the things that I learned as mayor when I went down to Annapolis to lobby to go after certain legislation that I need to get passed. And I had relationships with Republicans and Democrats, conservatives, etc. It was, in some ways, it was some of the progressives that in the city that, kind of gave me a challenge.
Yeah.
Only, and instead of looking at the bigger picture.
Right.
And so now look what we're facing.
Yeah. In District 8, you can't really be far left or far right representing District 8. You have to be a moderate, and at heart, I'm a moderate, and I listen to both sides. I just don't, for me, it's my way or no way. And I think that's the impression that a lot of progressives and far right folks give off, is just my way or no way. But sometimes there has to be compromise, especially if you don't have the votes, you got to compromise, and so District 8 really loves, we have both Republican and Democratic representatives, and they love to see bipartisanship. One of the things that I'm working on now is with Republican Councilman David Marks. We're working to bring another community center to the Dunfield Belmont area, which is off of Walther Boulevard near Oakcrest. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but we're working on that project together. And I told them, I said, look, this community is used to people coming here, making promises and not delivering on them. So I said, we have to deliver. If we're going to do this, we have to deliver. And he understands that. And he made that very clear when we had a community meeting about it, and so, I really enjoy, representing this district. It fits me so well, like a glove. And, I'm going to work hard to make sure I continue to represent this district.
Well, that's refreshing to hear, because that's what politics is supposed to be, the art of compromise. Right? And it's about being able to have diversity in, policy and discussions about forming policy. Can't be one way or the other way. That's just like living under a dictatorship. Doesn't even make sense. And elected leaders need to learn from you and others to say, I'm not here about my way. I don't represent me. I represent hundreds of thousands of constituents that I have to represent, and they have viewpoints as well that may not be like mine. Yeah. So I got to take that.
If I could add this in, I have a great relationship with the FOP president in Baltimore County, David Rose. And when he got elected, I went to his office to talk about making sure that we had some diversity on his panel, his board. And before I can even get the words in comes an African-American guy. And I just thought he was coming in. He said, Carl, this is my vice president. And that meant a lot to me, because representation means a lot. He can be able to be there to talk about the Black experience because he knows that, and it's been a great working relationship. We've talked about the PAL program, about the FOP and investing more in community programs. So one of the things they did, like a bike ride event on the west side of the county. On the east side of the county, they had the Kona Ice truck come to the PAL Center and give out free, ices and things like that. And so I have a great working relationship with him as well, and we don't see eye to eye on everything, but we work together and we compromise, and he listens to me because I'm always advocating for community engagement with the police. That is so important. That's how we prevent, all of these, situations that we find on the internet and the news. Community engagement is so important, and they know that. And I actually endorsed him for re-election because I feel like I can get things done. We can get things done together, working with him. So, like I said, I work with everyone, and I think folks appreciate that.
Great.
Well, Delegate Jackson, we ain't kicking you off. You can stick around with us. We're going to have this conversation throughout the night. Definitely want to thank you for joining us, but we also want to bring into the conversation Greg Holmes. He's joining us this evening. We're going to talk about politics all night. Of course, today is election day in many jurisdictions across the country. Some local jurisdictions here in Maryland are having elections, smaller jurisdictions. You got, of course, Virginia having a big governor's race. And, of course, Democrats trying to keep hold of that House of Delegates over there. New Jersey has a race. New York has races. And so we have a lot of things that are shaking up here, especially in the Prince George's County region. And so Greg is the founder of the Maryland Black Business Matter and a political strategist in his own right, hailing from Prince George's County. Greg, welcome to the Political Regulator.
Hassan, thank you. It's good to be here. How you doing, Sheila? Good to see you again.
I'm good. How are you?
Doing good. Thank you.
So look, Greg, for the second time in as many months, the Prince George's County Democratic Central Committee chose one of their own. Faye Martin Howe, she was chosen to fill the void in the 24th district in the House of Delegates. She defeated Latasha Ward at a special meeting of the Central Committee. Now, Howe's nomination actually was being forwarded to the governor now. He has 15 days to appoint. She was filling the vacant seat left by Delegate Eric Barron, who was confirmed to the U.S. Senate, by the U.S. Senate to become the U.S. Attorney for Maryland. She was supported by the district Senator Joanne Benson and Delegate Cheryl Landis, the newest state delegate, who herself was recently the chair of the Prince George's Central Committee. She filled the vacancy left by Delegate Ron Watson, who became the senator for the 24th district after Doug Peters left to join the Board of Regents. Now, Watson was supported by Angela Also Brooks and Tim Adams, who we had on the show last week, candidate for state comptroller, even as also he was running against Also Brooks' appointee to the county's Human Relations Commission, Mrs. Sylvia Johnson. What's going on? I mean, you guys have different shuffling down there all the time. Like next year's elections, I'm sure is going to be off the hook, but put into context all these new appointments going on down in Prince George's County and where we look to come in 2022.
Yeah, so I appreciate that rundown. It's kind of confusing if you don't know the lay of the land, Hassan. So thank you for doing your best to connect the dots. Well, first thing I want to say is that the Central Committee, in my estimation, you should have to resign off the Central Committee if you want to put your name forward. I don't think you should be able to kind of double dip, if you will, on the Central Committee and run for a seat that's open and vote for yourself. I think you should recuse yourself from that. But that being said, this coming year, in both the 25th and 24th districts, in particular in Prince George's County, is going to open itself up to a lot of new candidates, and there's a lot of jockeying going on. But specifically in that 24th district, because as you mentioned, Eric Barron, the next U.S. attorney, you have Jazz Lewis, who's also has announced that he's going to run for Congress. So now that's two seats in 24 that are going to be up. And then you mentioned what's going on in 25th and in the 23rd district. So I think when you look at it, Prince George's County has always been at the center of politics, if you will, in the state. But I think more so this year, because of all the open seats in the movement, you're going to see a lot of new faces, which I think is good for representation in Annapolis.
Now, speaking of the center of the universe, you had Prince George's County councilwoman who was just announced as a lieutenant governor for Peter Franchos's gubernatorial campaign. Your Prince George's County gubernatorial nominee, Rashawn Baker, chose a Montgomery County representative. So Baltimore City in this Baltimore region, Delegate Sheila, is all but lost at this point. It seems like they've all kind of forgot, but you raised the point that Anthony Brown, the congressman, former lieutenant governor, who ran for governor in 2014 and got his brains beat out by Larry Hogan, wanted to run for governor earlier this year, but didn't find the support. As soon as Attorney General Brian Frosh announces his resignation, Anthony Brown jumps in the race. Delegate Jazz Lewis, as you said, jumps in the race for his old seat, Anthony Brown's congressional seat. But sticking with Anthony Brown, he now is running for Attorney General. Possibly running against him is Katie Curran O'Malley, whose father is the longest serving Attorney General of the state, and whose husband was the governor for the Lieutenant Governor, Anthony Brown. What are these dynamics? Like, let's start with this.
Yeah.
How favored is Anthony Brown at all in Prince George's County?
He's not. And let's be clear. It wasn't so much that he wasn't going to get the gubernatorial support. I think that he sought additional counsel from people connected with Westmore and decided that, you know what, maybe it's better if I look to do something different, because I didn't want to have too many black candidates, if you will, in the race. And so I think it was more to do with his inability or his relationship with Westmore's wife to really, push him to say, you know what, give the young guy a chance. I've been there, kind of done that, as opposed to really not getting a whole lot of traction. But as far as the AG race, I don't see any excitement there. I mean, he hasn't done anything, in my estimation, one at the congressional level to warrant saying, hey, I want to be the top law enforcement officer for the state. So I think it's going to be tough for him. I think it's going to be tougher than he thinks. And I think there are going to be additional people who get into that race who may pose an additional challenge for him. The fact that he used to be lieutenant governor, as congressperson, I think the lieutenant governor piece has lost on a lot of people because, let's be honest, it's been 8 years. And so, he has to rebuild that infrastructure and that reputation as a statewide candidate. And I think he's lost a lot of luster there.
And one of those other possible candidates is Senator Will Smith. And Madam Mayor, I'm going to let you jump in. But for those watching, if Senator Will Smith gets in this race, it leaves a vacancy in the chairmanship of the Senate Judicial Proceedings Committee. And I will say right now on the record, Bill Ferguson, Mr. President, we need an African-American female to chair that committee for Baltimore City, i.e. Senator Jill P. Carter will be a likely candidate comes to mind. But sorry, Madam Mayor, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that
it's a good plug.
The way that this wheel is turning, with this person getting in the race, it seems like Anthony Brown, though, he just got into Congress. He hasn't been in there that long. It's like he's like jumping from place to place. And to me, that gives me a perception of someone that really doesn't take whatever the responsibility that they have, as serious as they need to. I had a conversation with Katie O'Malley yesterday, really lengthy conversation, shared my perspective on some things, gained a lot of knowledge in some respect about the Attorney General's role in really helping to fight this whole effort that we're going through in crime. So it'd be interesting to see how that turns out.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say on the record, I mean, we're going to have forums and debates from DMV Daily and this program next year, probably February, with the Attorney General's race, with the Comptroller's race, with the gubernatorial race, and others. So we're going to, we're not giving any endorsements, but I can tell you right now, personally, I support Katie O'Malley 100% based off things that I've seen from her myself over the years as a judge, as an attorney, as an advocate. And Baltimore City is in dire need, especially of candidates on a statewide level. It's like we're being left out of the loop, and it is what it is. Things, but I do got to say that I got to bring it back to the congressional seat that Anthony Brown is vacating. Right. We talked about Delegate Jazz Lewis, former state's attorney Glenn Ivey, Prince George's County State's Attorney Glenn Ivey is getting into the race as well. The possibility of two of the former Congress representatives, Albert Wynn and Donna Edwards, of possibly getting in the race. They haven't announced yet, but that's the likelihood. And this is the safest district in the nation for African Americans. I never knew this until a couple of weeks ago. The safest for an African American in the entire country. Where does things shake out and play out right now on that congressional race to fill Brown's vacancy?
Well, right now that's my congressional district, so I know it pretty well. I ran as a Biden delegate in this particular congressional district and got over 100,000 votes. And so you're right, man. You bring up two names that are from the past. To be honest with you, the county needs to move to have a new generation of leadership. We really need to look to the future. I think elections are all about the future, not about where we've been, but where we're going. And to have Albert Wynn and Donna Edwards kind of sniffing around, I don't think there'd be a whole lot of support there. I think there's still other candidates or other people who are looking at the race. And so by no means should anyone take anything for granted. I think what gives Jazz Lewis maybe an edge is that he works currently for Congressman Hoyer. And so obviously he has that relationship and is going to get that support from Congressman Hoyer. But I personally think, from having lived in this district for over 20 years, been a third generation Prince George's County resident, that there's a wanting for some new blood, if you will, and who are not connected to the same political structure. And so I'd keep your head out, your eyes and ears open for some new folks kind of jumping in you may not have heard of up to this point. But I want to share something else with, if it's okay, a kind of dynamic that I've been talking with folks about that no one's really kind of touched on, if you don't mind, Hassan and Sheila. And it's that let's look at it. At U.S. Attorney, you have a delegate African-American man from Prince George's County. The next treasurer is likely to be an African-American man, Derek Davis from Prince George's County. There's a African-American man running for comptroller in Tim Adams from Prince George's County. So you could conceivably look at, and then if you look at the AG's race with Anthony Brown, you could conceivably see 4 African-American men from Prince George's County and having 4 of the most prominent positions in the state. And so there's a historic piece to this, irrespective of name recognition and other things, that they can't be lost on the dynamics coming out of Prince George's County. So when I say that Prince George's County is at the center of the universe, it really could be in 2022 with those seats that I just mentioned. And then obviously we have Rashawn Baker, who's seeking to run for governor. So you could have 5 Black men from Prince George's County kind of leading the charge, if you will, from a state perspective. Now, on the other hand, Hassan and Sheila, you could have Mrs. O'Malley as AG, Brooke Lemon as comptroller, and someone like a Franchal Gansler as governor. And then now you look at the Black political establishment not having any Black representation in any statewide position. And that would be interesting if a Michael Steele were to get in on the Republican side. Who do Black folks vote for in the general election if you have white candidates on the Democrat side and 1 Black candidate for governor on the Republican side? So again, Mike Steele out of Prince George's County. So Prince George's County really can push the envelope on what's possible here in 2022.
Yeah, that's true. That's absolutely true. And it's going to be interesting to see how things turn out. I think, and I'm not, but I'm predicting that it might go another way where a lot of those individuals won't, if you're going to get appointed, that's one thing. The treasury, you get voted, you get appointed, or you get votes by the General Assembly. But, we had Tim Adams on last week. He's clearly the qualified candidate. The problem is, it's just like the case with Donna Edwards. Donna Edwards, when she ran for senator, it's like certain communities tend to have their picks. And then that's what they go with. Like Brooke Learman, she's not experienced to be comptroller. But it's like she's a chosen one. Chris Van Hollen was a chosen one. So in some ways, I don't blame Donna for wanting to go back, because right now, look at the condition of what's happening in Congress. And I'm sorry, and I'm not saying I don't agree with some of the progressive movements and what they're trying to do, but they're going too far to the point where we're going to end up losing out altogether. And then what's going to happen?
Lose the House. Yeah, you're going to lose the House.
Because we're not being realistic.
If you lose the House, then where you are.
So, and of course, the moderates, the guy from West Virginia, two moderates shouldn't be dictating either. Where's the compromise overall? I'm sorry. I don't feel like putting out more tax dollars. Why Hogan won and why blacks end up voting him the second term, and people don't want to hear this, but he reduced people's taxes. People look at what the impact is on them and their household. And I'm not saying I'm not all for programs, but we've done so many daggone programs and we've support, from grassroots on, that have not been effective, and nobody wants to deal with the truth of the matter and really assess what's out there. Because if all these programs that have been out there for all these different years that have not been effective, but trying to make payroll and do their little thing and not having real significant change in the community, y'all might not want to hear this. It's like the Associated Black Charity. A lot of folks are like, you can't criticize the Associated Black Charity. It's all about how they can maintain a status, but no real results. Right. I remember when I was mayor, the whole theme was creating middle class. Okay, how you gonna do that? How you doing? How you gonna do that? Get more grant money just to keep saying that? I don't know. I'm on a tangent now, but hey, I'm only gonna tell the truth.
Sound like you empty-headed.
So I like Kathy O'Malley, but I told her, I said
that was good.
I said it could be good or bad. Your father was a great attorney general, but people don't associate you with Karen. They associate you with Martin O'Malley. People love Martin O'Malley and people hate Martin O'Malley, and you could feel the wrath of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when you work with certain individuals, like I've worked with Anthony Brown when he was lieutenant governor on a huge effort to try to deal with the Susquehanna River and this water committee that we were on, and they were trying to create this water authority to take some of Baltimore City's power away, and watching how people operate and function and trying to manipulate things. I'm not impressed with Anthony Brown. Right. And when you talk about needing new blood, that's my last point. That's what they said in Baltimore. Oh my goodness. OMG, the new blood. These council people don't even show up. All this stuff on social media, but don't show up when a community needs you.
Right.
You need a balance.
Let the church say amen. Let the church say amen.
I agree.
Hey, and look, speaking of everybody wanting, and Anthony gets in, the first person to jump out to support him is Kwaizi Mfume, my colleague, who I've worked with over time. You ain't been working with him for the past year. Come on, you just got in there your goddamn self. But he made it seem like they've been working together for 20 years.
Yeah. Oh yeah, he endorsed him earlier today.
Oh my gosh, Kwaizi, what the hell is wrong with you?
he trying to be a political player at his old age. Man, you need to go sit down somewhere. Come on now. That's the problem with politics.
Age is only a number.
Right. No, I'm not talking about, but come on.
I hear what you're saying.
Real. You know, we need dynamic, fresh leadership, as you just said. Doesn't have to be young. Doesn't have to be people who don't do nothing. It needs to be people coming in who has that backbone to really get something done for the community. Like Carl Jackson was just talking about. I felt like I had to get in there and do something for and he's actively doing that. We don't need these old politicians with these old names that everybody knows that gets them in, but then they get up there and it's a party for them. They don't care. They just want to, be with the movers and the shakers. And
I want the title.
They
want the title.
Well, they want the title and they want the salary.
That's it.
Because the salary and the health benefits. That's why
when Sheila, correct me if I'm wrong, there's work that comes along with that, correct?
It's a whole lot of work.
And then work that comes along with the title and the salary. So to Hassan's point, they're not willing to do the work.
Right. It's a lot of work. And right now in this country, we have it's just so much that has to get done. Look at the infrastructure bill. It still hasn't been passed.
They still playing games.
And that's why I differ from you with Donna, because Donna's part of that whole progressive movement. And that's not what this district is going to support. This congressional district, they're not going to support that again.
Yeah, but I listen to Donna on MSNBC pretty regularly.
Yes.
And I don't get that perspective from Donna. The perspective that I get from Donna is really trying to tell some truths about how you have to operate and what you need to do. I don't get that progressive perspective, but hey, I mean,
my only thing is be who you are, who you have been, who you are today. Are you going to still be that person? That's all I want to know, because when she was elected, she was very, very progressive. Now she's on MSNBC, to your point, and she's talking with some practicality in her. But now when you want to run for office, are you going to switch back? Are you going to be like somebody like yourself, who you maintain who you were throughout that? Win or lose, that's who you are. Yeah, and people ain't got to figure out where, okay, I ain't got to locate Sheila today, and then 2 years ago she different. But nah, you are who you are. And that's my only concern with Donna is, is she going to maintain that, which she's talking on MSNBC, if she decides to run, is she going to maintain that level of, she's leaning into some stuff that she hasn't leaned into before when she ran for Senate, county executive, or Congress. So
because she don't have to be a fake personality. I think she faked herself out with the progressive stuff, thinking that was going to get her reelected in that district. Right. Now she could probably be, like I say, a media personality is just that. I tell people all the time, I'm a media personality. I might say one thing to get the conversation lively. That doesn't necessarily mean I believe that all the time. It's just that's what works for television and radio at the time. And so I think she may be taking that same route, or that may be who she really is on MSNBC. Right. And the fake Donna Edwards was who she was to get reelected.
Was the one elected. Right. Yeah, you're right. You could. Very good point. Very good point. Yeah. Again, if it's this Donna Edwards, then yes, because she's bullish, she leans in, she tell it straight. I can respect that. But that old Donna, no, we don't want that. Not now. That was the 2010 Donna. We in 2022 now. So,
I mean, you have some other folks down in your area. Yeah, you have some other folks in your area that need to retire. Steny Hoyer.
Oh, we got
Montgomery County,
Steny Hoyer need to go. Steny Hoyer. We got Joanne Benson. We got Obie Patterson. I mean, we got a list of them down here.
Yeah, Obie Patterson. That's just like in Baltimore County. Some of the council people that are trying to hold on to their seats. It gets to a point where, if you're not going to be really effective in your job, then you need to go.
Right.
Same thing with the city. Same thing with the city.
So, Delegate Jackson, let me ask you something, Carl, because there's a lot of moving parts right now. Your chairman is about to leave to become the next appointed treasurer, according to most reports. Your vice chair, Kathleen Dumas, just got appointed to the bench today or yesterday from Governor Hogan. And then, you got other people leaving and going. Is there any likelihood or knowledge of who may replace the chair and the vice chair on economic matters come January when the session starts and both of those chairs and vice chairs are gone. Are you going to be the next chairman?
No, definitely not me. For sure.
Do we need to make a push for you to become the next chairman? Because we can do that.
No, one step at a time. One step at a time. I'm still learning. Yeah, I mean, there's just rumors at this point. It's nothing official. So I don't have any official word. It's just rumors at this point.
See, that's what I like about Carl. I'm still learning. And that's important when you get into these different roles and responsibilities. There's a process, and you do have to take the time to learn and understand your job and your responsibility instead of jumping into things that, you then have to take on that and still learn. And then you just trying to figure out where you are, what's happening.
One of the things about me is I respect experience, and I respect those who been there, done that, know what's going on. I can have my own aspirations, but I like to listen to those who's seasoned, have experience, and a lot of folks have guided me in the right direction since I've been there because I listened and not just want to get down there and climb up the ladder fast, but just really learning the process and the pitfalls and things like that. And you gotta have a humbleness about you to be able to do that. And that's just me, You go with what works, and not try to recreate the wheel, so to speak.
So speaking of elections, tonight is a very important election in Virginia, as many of you know. Looking to see, obviously the polls haven't closed yet, but you have not just the gubernatorial campaign, because everybody's focused on that. And Terry McAuliffe, the Democratic nominee, and Glenn Youngkin, the Republican nominee, have definitely garnered a lot of attention, as should be. But the battle for control of the state legislature is also a key for the Democratic state over there in the Old Dominion state. Greg, I know you're closer to Virginia than we are. Is there any word on, what's shaping up right now to what it looks like of whether McAuliffe is going to get that seat or Youngkin's going to pull out the upset, or if Democrats are going to hold on to control of the House?
Yeah, so as of right now, polls have closed in Virginia. As you guys probably know, they closed at 7. And there has been a higher turnout than the last gubernatorial election, I think, which bodes well for McAuliffe. It's really going to depend on the town of Virginia, right outside the DC suburbs. I mean, that's ground zero in Virginia, and then the Hampton Roads, Norfolk area. I have some friends down there. I did reach out today. There's nervousness in Virginia right now that Youngkin may have pulled it out because, he got a Trump endorsement, but he didn't run like a Trump candidate. I mean, he was likable. He smiled all the time, had a pep in his step, and McAuliffe seemed to be struggling a little bit, especially over the last couple of weeks. So it's going to be interesting. It'd be interesting if Youngkin were to win and the Democrats were to hold on to the House and the Senate in Virginia. That would be interesting dynamic for Virginia.
Wow.
I'm thinking about something that you mentioned too. Michael Steele, all right? He's the Republican former lieutenant governor for Early. Yes. Many people consider him to be the possibility of running for governor. But think about it. He's also an attorney. Now, he could run for attorney general, but there is a thing that Tom Perez ran up against is you have to have practiced for 10 years in the state. And I'm not sure that Michael Steele has practiced for 10 years, unless he's still practicing right now as a commentator for MSNBC and others. I'm wondering if the practicality is, will he run for a pretty much open Republican nomination on the attorney general front, as opposed to getting into a rather crowded Republican field already for the gubernatorial race? That may be of interest to watch as well.
So when you said
absolutely
practice for 10 years, does it mean currently or in the past?
that was a question that the state's highest court really didn't answer. Because I know Tom Perez, they disqualified him when he wanted to run for it earlier. And I'm almost certain that it wasn't current, that it had to have been over a period of time. So I would say if that's the case, then Michael Steele should be okay. Now, if it's current, that's a different question altogether. And I'm not quite sure the courts actually made a clarity in that, whether it was over time or and we'll get the answer to that. But that's a good question. And I'm saying if he's qualified, I think Michael Steele may say, you know what? Hey, the hell, y'all can have the governor's race. I might be the next attorney general for the great state of Maryland, because like you said, there could be this is a non-incumbent that he'll be running against. Right. And if there is a white gubernatorial, Democrat and Republican, he can say, hey, blacks, I will be the only statewide ever elected. He was the first African-American lieutenant governor ever elected in Maryland. So he's used to making history. I don't know. Something to think about.
Right. No, I don't disagree. That's a good point. The other thing that wouldn't shock me is, because I think what he did file was actually allowed him to run as a federal candidate. It would not shock me if he ran for U.S. Senate in 2024, when all likelihood that Cardin will not run for re-election in 2024. And so that wouldn't surprise me either, that he's got his name out there now to eventually run for the open U.S. Senate seat in 2024.
The president is over in Switzerland, is it? Or where is he for the whatever the summit is called? And they caught him the climate, but wherever he is, and they caught him sleeping with his eyes closed. But what people don't realize is when you have to sit through these conferences and you are at a different time, it's tough. I don't care how old or young
body starts shutting down, huh?
Yeah, because you're on a different time zone. And you don't ever get back, and you don't adjust to the time zone. You have to mentally do it. Because when I had to do international business, I had to mentally do it. I literally didn't hardly get any sleep, because, it's crazy when you.
Madam Mayor, have you ever slept at one of those events, or?
I probably closed my eyes at one of those events that I had to attend.
Wow. Well, let's be honest,
most of the time when I traveled internationally, it was more for trade shows. So I had to be on my feet. I had to work with our clients, so you didn't have time to do that. But believe me, as the mayor, attending a couple conferences and stuff, and you just listen to people, I probably did.
Look,
and you can't leave, right?
And you
can't leave
as well.
That's why they drink a lot of coffee. And keep in mind, they got to wear those masks and everything. So they probably don't even have coffee in it. I don't even drink coffee, but still.
And so nobody sees your eyes.
That's ridiculous. But
I know what I wanted to mention about in St. Louis, about the referendum, eliminating the police department and creating public safety. So that'd be interesting to see what happens there.
Yeah, that's going to be huge.
And since you have Mr. Greg Holmes on here with the Maryland Black Businesses Matters, in Richmond they have the referendum for Casino One. Alfred Liggins and Dr. Kathy Hughes pushing for the casino. This will be the first Black casino in the country, Black fully owned.
Majority owned.
And where? And where is it?
In Virginia.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
what a lot of people don't know is Kathy Hughes had a piece of the MGM to meet the minority requirement there over here in Prince Georgia.
A third of the MGM.
So she has it now. She has a third of it now.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Oh, Kathy Hughes is stretching out beyond just Radio 1 Urban.
That's good. You got to diversify if you want to stay in business.
Right.
And speaking it seems like casinos and sports gambling is the way to go. Now, Carl is on here, and they keep saying that they've carved out a piece for minorities as relates to the sports gambling. But okay, explain to me what piece did they carve out, and how is, because don't you have to have a facility to have sports gambling? Like, can't you do sports gambling in a liquor store? I mean, I'm trying to understand it. Nobody ever made it clear.
Yeah, they have like, I think even mobile sports betting. It's a lot of things. But I think when they talk about minorities, I think they're just saying awarding, permits and things to minority-owned companies. I think that is because of what happened with the medical marijuana situation, where it was the Legislative Black Caucus that really pushed that forward and pushed it over the line, but it was no African Americans benefited from it. So,
So when you say mobile, what? You could set up an app and people can do it on their phone, and you can. Oh, okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we're working. Part of our.
I need to work on that.
Yeah, we have an African American business owner who wants to apply for one of the mobile licenses to do mobile gaming.
Yeah.
But again, to your point, Sheila, there are no rules of the road to this. This is all new money. And so this is trial and error. So I've had conversations with Darryl Barnes, Delegate Barnes, concerning minority participation and specifically Black ownership.
Right.
We say minority, but I'm Black.
Yeah.
I'm Black. So I'm focused on Black businesses, and to have more Black businesses involved at the table before these rules of the road are even drawn up. They have Black businesses at the table, and so they give input, because you and I both know whoever the trend, whoever gets there first, rules the game. And so if we're not there first,
did they have
we're
Black
subject
businesses
to everything
there?
that's already been planned out.
Right. Did they have Black businesses there at the table when they were having that discussion? Right. Okay. So we know what's going to happen.
No. Yeah.
Problem with a lot
they
of
weren't there.
initiatives.
A lot of these caucus was involved in the negotiations.
Who?
Yeah, Black Caucus, but not Black businesses.
Right. Yeah.
But
well, you gotta understand.
Yeah, I'm talking about Black businesses being in the room.
Right.
The
And,
problem out of the
they got to come up with. You got brick and mortar, and this is the problem I have. They automatically awarded all of the casinos with their own. They automatically got it, and they got online gaming, because you only have a certain amount of licenses that they're going to be able to give.
Right.
Otherwise, you dilute the entire process. Nobody gets money.
Right.
And that's the problem with the licenses. A lot of times they say it's minority participation, but then they group so many folks in that minority quota. White women, LGBTQ now is included. The Hispanic community, the Asian community. There's so many communities that are being added that unfortunately it really takes away from the real goal of the initiative, and that's really to bring opportunity really to the Black community that's been marginalized and left out of a lot of these particular opportunities in the past.
And you got to have a lot of money to come in with this. It's not like this isn't. Yeah, you ain't coming in with a couple.
How much money you have to get a license?
I'm almost saying like starting with 500 million or something was the starting price. Like, it's a big amount of money. Matter of fact, Corey, we need to have Corey McCray back on. Corey was a part of that as the budget committee in the Senate. And he dug deep into to making sure that we had carve-outs for African Americans, following up on it and stuff. So we'll send that back to him. But speaking of your point, Madam Mayor, Minneapolis, Minnesota. Minneapolis has that charter amendment that could replace today the police department with a city charter that's going to be it's going to be called the Department of Public Safety. And it will focus on mental health and civilian well-being, as well as social services, which is their way of defunding the police department and reverting that over, which I don't think it's going to pass, because you can talk about defunding the police all you want, but especially in African-American communities, they want their police department. Of course, they want more services for mental health and social services, stuff like that, but they see a very distinct difference between the two. And I just don't think that they're willing. And that is an African-American majority region as well that we're talking about, Minneapolis. So, of course, that's where the Derek Chauvin and killed George Floyd area as well. So, you know, they're still reeling from that incident. But
yeah, well, that'd be interesting to see what happens there.
Absolutely. Do you know about, where's this thing at? It was there was a judge, and I don't know how he became a judge in Alabama, who, he doesn't even have a lawyer. Alabama judge was booted for racist and inappropriate comments. He oversees the elections in an Alabama county. They removed him from office after he was heard saying racist and sexually inappropriate comments and behaviors over time, even saying that George Floyd got what he deserved when the officer murdered him in Minnesota. Talladega County probate judge Randy Jenks, 65, was unanimously ordered to get his butt off the bench of the Alabama court, the judiciary. But here's the thing. He's a former business owner who isn't even an attorney. He's not even an attorney, and he's serving as a probate judge. And it reminds me of what we had here in Maryland. Remember, we had the orphans court judges, and that woman who runs all the time, she ran for everything under the sun. Deborah Moore.
Ramona Moore Baker.
That's it, Ramona Moore Baker. And she won for orphans court one year. And they realized that you didn't have to be a lawyer to be on the orphans court. The Maryland General Assembly turned right around, mandated that you become an attorney, and kicked her off and didn't even let her get sworn in as the orphans court judge, because they hurried up and changed the law on it to make sure that you're an attorney just because of her. That's it. That's they got this man on here. He don't even have a law license. Elected in 2018 and was calling employees niggers and Black Lives Matter demonstrations, talking about just giving welfare and they'll shut up. This guy was on their bench in Alabama. Doesn't surprise
me. Yeah, it doesn't surprise me either. That's crazy.
That's the country we're living in. Whew,
yeah.
Boy.
All right, so what we got? Yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna wrap it up for tonight. We're gonna see about these election results. Of course, next week tonight we'll on DMV Daily on our Facebook, on our Twitter and stuff. We'll make sure that we put out the election results in both Virginia and New York and New Jersey and across the country on what we're talking about. Remember, next week, Senator Antonio Hayes will be joining us, as well as a candidate from down there where you're at, Greg, running in the 25th district for state delegate. Richard Deshae Elliott will be joining us next week, as well as the mayor for Colin Boyd. Colin Boyd. I'm sorry.
Oh, Colin Boyd.
Colin Boyd will be joining us next week as well. Yep, Greenbelt. And so it'll be an interesting show next week. Join in 6 to 8 as always. Thank you so much, Greg, Delegate Jackson, for joining us tonight.
Good to see you guys.
Awesome.
Definitely.
Yeah,
great conversations. Great conversations.
Thank you, guys.
Appreciate it.
JJ, Jason, as always, thank you for holding us down on the technical side, the production side of this thing. And family, as always, remember, the new promise begins with a new day. Therefore, the promise of tomorrow is greater than that of yesterday. Madam Mayor, good night.
Good night.
Good night.
We work for Mr. Tunstall as regulators. We regulate any stealing of his property. We're damn good, too. You can't be any geek off the street. Gotta be handy with the steel, if you know what I mean. Earn your keep.
Regulators, mount up.